Hello, I'm Nicole Presley, the Director of Organizing Strategy on the Side with Love team at the Unitarian Universalist Association. Side with Love brings our values to life through mobilizing leaders within our congregations and beyond. And we advance justice on four key issues: democracy, climate justice, bodily autonomy and gender justice, and decriminalization. And with these initiatives, we build power alongside our partners in local, state, and national campaigns. And as Audre Lorde once said, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not lead single issue lives. And as a part of our ongoing commitment to root our work in justice and understand how climate justice is connected to all the other issues, we're doing a series of videos called Climate at the Intersections, where we'll explore climate justice as racial justice, gender justice, disability justice, and more. And that is why I'm here with the beloved member of the Side with Love team, Rachel Mislivi, your climate justice strategist, who's going to help us understand a little bit about how climate is a justice issue. So let's get to it, Rachel. How would you describe climate as a justice issue?
Thanks for having me, Nicole. This is a great question and super important. So first, we know that climate change impacts everyone, absolutely. And it impacts all of us differently. So marginalized communities are hurt first and worst by climate disruption, and they're often least resourced to adapt to and respond to changing climate conditions. And that's usually by design. With deep roots in extractive systems of harm and systemic oppression like racism, white supremacy, capitalism, and colonialism, climate justice is an intersectional issue and one that we have to understand as this complex crisis with the same roots as the systems of oppression we fight so hard against. So, for a quick example, the racist housing policy of redlining, where literally red lines were drawn on maps to segregate communities. Those same beloved communities are now occupied by the polluting industries that are not only the primary drivers of climate change, they also pollute the air, water, and soil in these communities, in these historically redline neighborhoods. So, our neighbors in those neighborhoods also experience some of the most extreme heat, the hottest of hots in a changing climate. And extreme heat with no respite can lead to increased mental health crises, which can then lead to increased violence. And then that leads to more criminalization and incarceration of our BIPOC friends and neighbors, which just then further fractures these communities. So that's one example, a powerful example, I think, of the way climate justice is racial justice.
Thank you for that. And Rachel, why do you believe it matters that we approach our climate work as a justice issue?
Well, it's important, and I hope everybody takes this away from this conversation, is that just like the root causes are inextricably connected, so too must be our possible solutions. That's why it matters to understand why climate is an intersectional issue, because it makes our possibilities so much more impactful and so much greater. So in our climate work, we need to balance the technical solutions like solar and energy efficiency that, yes, we absolutely need to reduce the emissions that cause climate change. And we have to advance those grounded in the moral imperative to reduce harm and cultivate communities of care. We have to honor the inherent worthiness and dignity of all and the interconnected web of existence while dismantling race system and systemic oppression as we continuously improve the ways that we relate to each other and embody change in our congregations. We have to ground in our faith as we work together with intention and purpose. So, without an understanding of the context of oppression in our area and the way climate disruption impacts some of our neighbors more than others, our climate actions can unintentionally advance injustice. Our climate actions that are well-meaning and good intended can actually cause harm. So it's critical that we understand what climate injustice looks like in our communities.
Well, Rachel, that is a lot. And as an organizer, I hear this and I feel overwhelmed, and I even struggle to know where to begin. So, how would you encourage Unitarian Universalists to engage on this topic, and what opportunities exist for UUs to take action on climate justice?
Mm. Yeah, Nicole, it is a lot, and I'm really glad that you acknowledge that. I think it's important to acknowledge the overwhelm that we can feel, especially for people who have maybe been doing this work for a long time, to recognize that maybe we need to reorient. So fortunately, when we ground ourselves in our faith and in our communities, we find more liberatory solutions and stronger relationships that then transform our experiences to be more nourishing and our actions to be more impactful. So as far as what we can do, there's so many things that we can do. And I think one of the first and most important things to do is consider what climate injustice looks like in your community. So that starts with an understanding of the context of oppression in your area. So, what neighborhoods were redlined, for example, like the example I used earlier? If your town was too small to have been redlined, think about what communities were pushed to like the other side of the tracks, which was what it was in my town. Was yours a sundown town? Whose land are you on is obviously a critical thing to understand. So we start as far back as we can go. And then, and this is absolutely critical, we have to scan up to modern times. So we can't just look far back and then get up to the civil rights movement and think that's the context of oppression. We really need to know what it looks like, what it feels like today. So questions like, how are your unhoused neighbors treated in your community? In the event of a flood, a wildfire, tornado, hurricane, or other natural or climate disaster, which of your neighbors are going to lose their homes? What are the barriers to their recovery? When the grid fails, like we're seeing happen so often now, who is at risk of that deadly combination of power outages and extreme heat? Which workers are more at risk of extreme heat? So that's not just the people you see on the road crews, for example, but also the people who are working in unair conditioned warehouses. So once you have this context and really what it's like in your area, in places that you can drive to in 30 minutes or walk to in, an hour, something like that, then you need to make sure that your climate work is addressing those issues. So yes, without question, we need to reduce emissions. And we need to make sure that while we're doing that, while we're advancing solar and energy efficiency, that those technologies are available to everyone, not just available to the people who can afford it, which is how it is now, frankly. So we also need to think about ways like when disaster strikes, how can we make sure that everyone has what they need? So imagine thinking about when you're thinking about adding solar to your congregation, as so many congregations are with that 30% direct pay from the Inflation Reduction Act for nonprofits. You could add solar and also add battery backup storage, which also has a 30% direct pay option. So then you could turn your congregation into a hub of climate resilience. So imagine that scenario. Because you've added solar and battery backup on your congregation, now the neighbor who requires electricity to power their oxygen tank or their dialysis, they can come to your congregation to receive life-saving care or reach telehealth if their power is out. Or your neighbors can call their loved ones to make sure that they're okay and let them know that that they're all right, because they can come and charge their cell phones if there was a hurricane. Another one that I think is really powerful that we don't think about that much is in times of extreme heat, a lot of people don't have air conditioning. And so also if your power's out, nobody has air conditioning, right? So if you have this place, this hub of resilience that you can keep cool, that's critical. So if there's a child who's having an asthma attack, they know that they can come and find safety and security and literally catch their breath in your building. If your neighbors lose their homes, they can find sanctuary and refuge in our congregations. So, we can do these things. These are not unimaginable things. These are very practical, tangible examples of things that we can do. We can create this world together. I have to give a plug for the Green Sanctuary 2030 Mobilizing for Climate Justice process and our UU Climate Justice Revival, Reimagined Together from an Extractive Age to a New Era. Both of these are designed to help our congregations vision the future and chart a course for how we're going to get there, how we're going to create a world where everyone thrives. And you can learn more about both of those activities at sidewithlove.org.
Rachel, you have been at this work. You have been organizing around climate for over 20 years. Some could say you devoted your life to this work. And so my question is, what is life-giving about this work? What is bringing you hope in the climate justice movement?
Nicole, I'm grateful for the question, and it is overwhelming. And as we said at the beginning, it's important to acknowledge that. And still, it's critical that we find the things that give us hope and keep us going. And so for me, one of the things that really does give me hope is that more and more people are starting to understand that we can't solve climate change with a singular approach, like you talked about with Audre Lorde quote. Climate change is a complex crisis that needs new ways of thinking and new ways of being in relationship together. And so I think about an interview I did several years ago with a farmer whose name was Fred Carter in Illinois when I was working in agriculture and climate. And so I was talking to Fred Carter about decarbonizing agriculture and what we need to do in the Midwest to decarbonize agriculture. And he said, no, hold on, I'm going to stop you right there. Before we talk about decarbonizing agriculture, we need to talk about decarbonizing our relationships. Because if I'm always coming at you with how much I can get out of you, I'm going to build a system to do exactly that. So I think about that all the time. And I say to our teams all the time, our Green Sanctuary teams, burning out your team is no way to advance climate justice. In our movements, I think too often we ask too much from people. And then when they get sick or they get tired or they get overwhelmed, we leave them behind. Or worse, we shame them for giving up. So how can we resist those cultures of extraction and harm that treat people as disposable? So for me, a question that gives me hope and that keeps me going every day is always, how can we center love in the climate movement? We can do this by grounding in our faith, by slowing down and listening to each other, by creating relationships, building trust, being kind, being generous, being thoughtful. Practicing gratitude is a huge practice for me. Genuine appreciation for when someone is in relationship with you. We need to appreciate people. To me, this is really the way to collective liberation. That's how we do it together.
Thank you, Rachel. And I want to share my deep appreciation for you and this urgent conversation about what climate justice can be within this faith. I want to open the floor to let you give one last plug. If someone wants to learn more about climate justice and what they can do, what should they do and where can they find that information?
Sure. Sidewithlove.org is where you can find everything related to UU's climate justice work, the UUA's climate justice work. And if you want to specifically look at the revival, you can look at uuclimatejustice.org. And also stay tuned to this video series. We're going to do several of these. There will be one on climate justice is racial justice, climate justice is disability justice, UU values in climate justice, and so much more. So keep coming back, come with humility, come with curiosity, and create a new world together.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.